She was a bright young teenager who fell hard for an older man.
He was charming and handsome.
She was crazy about him.
They look as they're in a perfect relationship.
But behind their smiling faces, trouble was brewing.
Nobody knew about this secret side of what she was doing.
He had been in trouble with the law.
She was going down a dangerous path.
And when she suddenly disappears, everyone fears the worst.
All the calls went unanswered.
Her family began to get alarmed.
They were taken aback.
Did she take off with her new boyfriend?
The family tell the detectives that she has become more rebellious.
He was living that type of lifestyle that would drive any parent crazy.
Or had her rebellious streak made her easy prey for a sadistic killer?
She would post these ads on the internet.
He had no regard for human life.
With a truth so shocking, no one saw it coming.
There was a second body and a second murder.
Somebody's gonna stand up and go, he's a serial killer. Do you want that on you?
She walked right into the lion's den without even realizing it.
I felt the devil. I mean, I honestly felt the devil.
Monday, February 11th, 2013. It's a frigid winter in St. Paul, one of Minnesota's twin cities.
The two main cities here are Minneapolis and St. Paul. They're basically sister cities.
Minneapolis considered the big town, St. Paul, the smaller community.
We have 4 seasons, but the winter time it gets very cold.
It's not uncommon to have temperatures in the single digits or even below 0.
As the sun sets on St. Paul, those frigid temperatures have one young mother worried about her 18-year-old daughter, Brittany Clardy.
Brittany had gone out that morning to run some errands, but by nightfall, she still hadn't returned.
Brittany was living at home at the time with her family, her sister, her mom, her dad. They started to wonder, where's Brittany? What is she doing? And that's when the worry started.
She just isn't like her.
It's cold outside. It's getting dark. Immediately, your heart jumps and you think the worst case scenario, something bad happened.
Brittany's mother tries to reach her daughter by phone, but all of her calls go to voicemail.
She made calls. She received absolutely nothing. Not a word from Brittany.
Come on, baby. Pick up the phone.
She was frantically calling different people. Have you seen Brittany? Have you heard from Brittany?
Consumed with worry, Brittany's parents stay up late into the night, calling her phone over and over again, until they finally get an answer.
Brittany? Is that you?
Imagine calling, trying to reach her, and all of a sudden, the phone answers. Wow, I've got her on the phone. It's her.
But the excitement is short-lived.
Hello? Hello?
She could hear muffled sounds in the background, like something's going on.
There was just a ruffling in the background with nobody talking.
Then all of a sudden, the phone was disconnected.
What's she saying?
The line just went dead.
What do you mean the line went dead?
It just went dead.
Now the family is convinced that something is seriously wrong with Brittany.
Growing up in St. Paul, Brittany Clardy was raised by protective parents.
Brittany's parents made sure to keep her and her siblings away from the inner city violence that occurred, along with drugs.
This is a family that wanted the best for their children.
Shielded from many of the harsh realities her peers faced, Brittany was able to shine as a student.
Brittany was a very responsible young girl. Her parents and her family trusted her extensively. She had done well in school. She had done well at jobs.
She was very goal-oriented, looking into the future, already working, keeping herself busy.
She had a bright future ahead of her.
After graduating high school, Brittany's confidence in what she could accomplish only grew larger.
Brittany had plans to become a pharmacist.
She was applying to colleges and looking forward to starting a career.
It was around this time that Brittany started hanging out with a handsome young man from the neighborhood, Braxton Green.
She met Braxton in December of 2011, and then they ended up going on their first date on Christmas Eve.
Thanks for letting me steal you away from your family tonight.
They see me enough as it is.
Brittany and Braxton became serious very quickly. He was charming and handsome and swept her off her feet.
Every time he moved, every time he walked, every time he talked, it was Braxton, it's Braxton.
Before long, Braxton became Brittany's new priority.
Brittany floods her social media feeds with Braxton's picture, and they look as if they're in a perfect relationship.
All right, baby. Smile.
Brittany showed off, here's my boyfriend, here we are, had no qualms about it. It was her and Braxton.
Damn, we look good.
But there was one problem. Brittany's parents didn't approve of her new boyfriend.
Have you seen this?
Braxton was a 23-year-old man.
When they first met, Brittany was only 17 years old, and her parents didn't like the fact that she was hanging out with a grown man while she was underage.
Didn't matter to Brittany. She was in love with him. She was crazy about him. Her parents couldn't break that.
Now, Brittany is 18 years old, so she feels more free. I am not going to listen to you, Mom. I am an adult now.
This was the man of her dreams.
Head over heels is a good way to describe it.
But now, Brittany Clardy has vanished, and her parents are beginning to fear the worst after an alarming phone call.
When Brittany finally appeared to pick up the phone after several attempts to reach her, there was no voice, just some muffled noises, and then the phone disconnected.
Subsequent calls go straight to voicemail.
This made Brittany's family very, very concerned.
Brittany's parents decide to check in with her boyfriend, Braxton Green, to see if she's with him.
Hello?
Have you talked to Brittany?
You sound worried.
We are worried. We haven't spoken to her since this morning.
He told her, I have not seen her.
He said that he did have plans with Brittany for earlier that day, but Brittany never showed up.
Brittany's parents wait up all night, hoping she'll return their calls or show up on their doorstep.
I just don't understand.
They had given her the whole night to reach out, but Brittany had not reached out.
By morning, they decide to involve the authorities.
So I understand you're both here about your daughter.
When Brittany went missing, her family contacted the St. Paul Police Department.
She left home yesterday around 11:30.
That's right.
At first, police are reluctant to get involved.
They simply said that she was a runaway or that she would come back and not to worry.
The family, of course, is trying to convince them, hey, this is a very responsible young girl. We need to take this seriously.
And Brittany's parents also provide police with their first suspect.
The family did inform the police of Brittany's relationship with Braxton.
Their theory is Brittany's boyfriend may have something to do with this.
18-year-old Brittany Clardy was in the prime of her life and head over heels for her new boyfriend, Braxton Green.
Braxton, this 23-year-old man, sweeps her off her feet. Braxton is charming, good-looking, and handsome.
Brittany was madly in love with Braxton.
But now, After leaving her parents' home on a chilly morning in the winter of 2013, Brittany has disappeared without a trace.
When she left home, it was 11:30, and by 1 to 1:30, the phone calls had absolutely stopped. There was nothing else.
That is, I would say, a mother's worst nightmare. When your child says, I'm going out to run some errands, and then an hour passes, another hour passes. Next thing you're talking evening.
When she didn't appear at home, mother then called her in as missing.
Brittany's family tells investigators they already have suspicions about what may have happened to her.
They told them they strongly suspected her boyfriend, Braxton.
The family suggested that he may have something to do with her disappearance.
I never liked him. What don't you like about him?
They said Braxton was a bad influence and that he was leading Brittany in the wrong direction.
He had been in trouble with the law. He had a child by another relationship. Not the ideal person that they would want their daughter to date.
Brittany's parents are also concerned about the way Braxton treats their daughter.
Braxton demonstrated a controlling behavior. When Brittany did not respond to text messages or phone calls, he would become really angry.
He didn't have a full-time job. I mean, he was just always hanging out all the time. He would say, go buy me this, go get me that.
He's a bum, you know? He's got her doing all this stuff she has no business doing.
Braxton liked to party, which Brittany also joined him in that lifestyle.
You know, Brittany generally lived a very clean lifestyle as a teenager growing up. And having Braxton in her life, he introduced her to partying. He introduced her to the alcohol. He got her into smoking weed.
Brittany's parents had worked so hard to keep her out of that life, but all of that went out the window when she got involved with Braxton.
She started to change. She became more abrasive. She became more confrontational. All of the stuff that goes with drugs and alcohol trickled into her life.
Brittany's parents say they wanted to let their daughter make her own decisions, but they eventually felt the need to intervene.
They had taken steps to try to convince her that maybe she should end the relationship.
Yet Brittany wasn't willing to listen.
Regardless of what Mom says, she was in love with Braxton.
I just know he had something to do with this. That's the only thing I can think of.
At the end of the interview, St. Paul police officially declare Brittany a missing person.
We'll be sure to keep you updated every step of the way.
They also put an ATL on that vehicle as well, attempt to locate. So if anyone were to run her car, if they were driving around, then that would come back as a hit.
While the investigators wait for leads to come in, they reach out to their sole person of interest, Braxton Green.
Hello? Is this Braxton?
Yes, who's this?
I'm calling
from the St. Paul Police Department in reference to
Brittany Clardy.
And we said, hey, we need your help. We're looking for her.
Do you have a moment to come down this evening and talk about this?
To detectives' surprise, Braxton refuses.
Listen, I really don't have much to tell you.
He was very evasive. I mean, he sent red flags just to flying. Yeah, I don't know where she is either. I've been looking for her. She won't answer her phone. The last I heard, she said she was gonna go take a nap somewhere.
Because he would not come in and talk to them, they put out an APB.
What we found and discovered is that he had an arrest warrant out for him already in a separate domestic-related case. It was either to do with child care or a probation violation or something, but he was being looked for to be placed under arrest.
With Braxton nowhere to be found, for days the investigation hits a standstill. But on February 21st, 10 days after Brittany disappeared, investigators catch a huge break in the case.
The Clardy family received a letter that the car Brittany had been driving was at this impound lot in Columbia Heights.
The tow company also informs them that the car was found in an apartment complex in Brooklyn Park, which is 20 miles from where the family resides.
Investigators immediately head to the impound lot, eager to search the vehicle.
Detectives quickly discover there's a large number of items piled up on that footwell area in the back seat. So very meticulously, they begin to remove these items so they can document each one as they go.
Brittany had an iPhone. They didn't find the iPhone, but they did find 2 burner phones.
We also found what was called a vanilla Visa card, and more prominently a bed sheet that had a very distinct pattern to it.
Underneath the sheet, they find something that stops them dead in their tracks.
We moved the belongings around in the back seat and said, oh my gosh.
There's a body in the back of the car.
Subtract her vehicle to an impound lot in the St. Paul suburb of Columbia Heights.
This was the car that was reported as being connected to Brittany as being a missing person.
Inside, they make a disturbing discovery.
Very quickly, they can see there's somebody's body in the back seat.
The body is nearly frozen solid.
It gets so cold in Minnesota, and that in essence kind of freezes the crime scene or freezes it in time.
It had been below freezing for many days leading up to her discovery, which gives us the ability to preserve some of that physical evidence that's still there. Some of the wounds haven't degraded. The body hasn't begun to decompose at all because it's been frozen.
The body is carefully removed from the vehicle and transported to the medical examiner's office, where they confirm it belongs to Brittany Clardy.
Once her identity was confirmed, that was very difficult news for her family to grapple with. They were still hoping that she was out there alive somewhere.
The parents are just totally devastated. Our daughter's gone.
Their pain is only worsened by the discovery that Brittany suffered a violent death.
The medical examiner found some ligature around the neck, that she had possibly been choked or strangled. They also found many blows to the head.
Brittany had somewhere between 15 and 17 blows to the back of her head. It was likely from a hammer.
Now more than ever, detectives want to speak with Brittany's elusive boyfriend, Braxton Green.
They had to talk to Braxton. We gotta bring this guy in. We gotta talk to him.
As patrol officers continue scouring the city for Braxton, detectives work on submitting a records request for the burner phones found in Brittany's car.
After locating the burner phones, it did set off some red flags for the detectives. They are aware that people involved in illegal activity are prone to use burner cell phones.
The vanilla Visa found in the vehicle also gives detectives pause.
That vanilla Visa is one of those visas where you can use it and no one knows who you are. Why would you need such a product?
Before detectives can answer that question, they get the news they've been waiting for.
Lo and behold, we got notification the boyfriend was arrested. They finally found him.
They were able to finally take him into custody, and they took him to the police station for questioning.
Under questioning, Braxton tells detectives the same thing he told them on the phone, that he has no idea what happened to Brittany.
I already told you everything I know.
He told them I had nothing to do with her disappearance. I have nothing to do with it.
He was denying it.
He tried to make it clear to the police that he did love Brittany. He said he really cared about her and that he would not do anything to hurt her.
When was the last time you saw her?
It was the night before she went missing. Then the next day she called me while she was out running around.
Brittany told him that she was tired and was gonna go to bed and take a nap and would see him later in the day.
We made plans to hang out that night, but a few hours went by and I didn't hear anything. I called her, but she wasn't answering.
He denies knowing about where she would have been that day. He denied having anything to do with her disappearance.
When it becomes clear that Braxton isn't going to offer up a confession, detectives try a different tactic.
They kept asking him, okay, if you didn't do anything to her, do you have anything that you know of that was going on in Brittany's life that would have led to her possibly being murdered?
We found burner phones and a disposable Visa in Brittany's car. Now, what can you tell me about that?
Police kept pressuring and pushing. That's when he told them something that they never thought of.
We did not expect this in any way, shape, or form.
Braxton told them that Brittany had engaged in online prostitution.
After 10 days of searching for missing Minnesota teenager Brittany Clardy, detectives made a disturbing discovery: the young woman's dead body in the back seat of her abandoned vehicle.
She had been strangled. She was struck in the head with a blunt object.
She was brutally murdered.
Now, less than 24 hours later, police have tracked down their prime suspect, Brittany's 23-year-old boyfriend, Braxton Green.
Braxton had refused to come in and speak with detectives. Now they had him in custody, and he was denying any involvement in this crime.
However, Braxton has admitted something else to the detectives, something they never could have imagined.
He said Brittany had been posting ads on sexual service websites and was engaging in sexual relations with clients for money.
Police find the claim hard to believe.
And that came as a big surprise to the investigators.
It just didn't fit her profile. Didn't fit anything about her.
But Braxton insists he's telling the truth.
Were you pimping her out?
Hell no. I didn't even like that she was doing it. But she wanted the money.
Working in a recreation center, the pay wasn't just enough, and she wanted to buy things. She needed some extra cash, so she started thinking, how can I do it?
I don't feel like the prostitution is indicative of like who she was or her character. I think it was more of this was her first stab at independence and making her own decisions for herself.
She went on this one website a lot called Backpage or something like that.
The detectives are familiar with Backpage. At the time, it had become a notorious site for prostitution and sex trafficking.
People would go on there and say, these are the things they're willing to do for this amount of money.
Braxton said Brittany would make calls with those possible clients through her burner phones, and that's how she would engage in customers.
At first, Brittany wasn't offering sex.
It started off where she would just do massages, but then she wanted the money you got for doing other stuff.
Although he didn't approve of what she was doing, Braxton says he would sometimes accompany Brittany when she met up with a client.
He admitted to police that at times he would go out on some of those calls with Brittany, and he would sit outside and wait for her in the car or whatever. It was a safety measure, make sure nothing bad happened.
Some of these guys were sketchy. I didn't want her getting hurt.
Do you know if she met with any of these clients around the time she went missing?
I don't know. But she was talking about needing money, so I wouldn't be surprised.
By the end of the interview, detectives are starting to believe that Braxton is telling the truth.
He was very cooperative. He handed over his phone, all his information.
Braxton's phone, it was pinging off of towers that were not anywhere near the location of where Brittany's body was found.
He's in a different part of the Twin Cities metro area, not even close. Long story short is that we came out of the interview satisfied, thinking that he was not involved in her disappearance or in her death.
Now, the detectives have a new theory about what happened to Brittany.
They were beginning to think her murder might have been related to her activities as an escort.
Our eyebrows raised and thought, well, maybe there's something here.
Detectives decide to canvass the apartment complex in Brooklyn Park where Brittany's car had been impounded.
The police had great reason to believe that Brittany was last alive, perhaps in Brooklyn Park.
So the investigation was extremely extensive. I mean, we were canvassing the area, pulling cameras in the area.
They knocked on doors all over that location, but no one remembered seeing Brittany or even knew who she was.
However, detectives make more progress when they get their hands on the data from Brittany's burner phones.
These records, they're voluminous. There's many dozens, if not hundreds of pages. What they find is in the last few hours of the afternoon of February 11th, Brittany's got some contacts with an Atlanta area code number.
It was a phone that was actually purchased and registered in the name of Alberto Palmer.
It gave them the key to this entire investigation.
This case through her phone records.
Now, detectives think they found the key to solving Brittany's murder buried in the call log of one of her burner phones.
Police discovered that Brittany had been in contact with a 25-year-old man named Alberto Palmer on the day that she disappeared.
There were several phone calls and messages that took place in the early afternoon hours of February 11th, even going back a couple days before that, about potentially Brittany providing some massage services to Mr. Palmer.
We did some work on the name Alberto Palmer. We found out that Mr. Palmer had a warrant out for his arrest out of a city called Chamblee, Georgia. And that's just outside Atlanta.
The reason for the warrant immediately sets off alarm bells.
He's wanted there for violent attacks against sex workers.
There were 3 different assault cases out of Chamblee, Georgia, involving Alberto, all 3 of which were females that were involved in prostitution and had gone over to his residence. And in all 3 cases, he had physically assaulted these females.
Had he done the same to Brittany Clardy? When investigators subpoena Alberto's phone records, they learn that he's recently been in communication with a family member who lives near where Brittany's car was found.
It was a few blocks from where the car was located, so now we have an address in Brooklyn Park.
He had actually ordered pizza to that address, I believe on the 11th, around where Brittany Clardy was murdered.
So now we're very curious.
However, more recent cell phone pings suggest that Alberto may have left Brooklyn Park in the days since Brittany's disappearance.
Alberto's phone number is going to a house in Woodbury, Minnesota. Brooklyn Park is on the west side. They're like 25, 30 miles apart.
So it's complicated the case a little bit because we had 2 separate locations. We had to plan basically simultaneous warrants at both locations.
On March 6th, the investigators launched their coordinated strike.
We were able to pretty much hit the Brooklyn Park location and the Woodbury location pretty close to the same time.
They do what's called the knock and talk. We're just going to knock on the door, see who answers, and see if they know anything.
In Brooklyn Park, Alberto Palmer's family member comes to the door.
Hi, can I help you?
Yes, ma'am. We're with the St. Paul Police Department.
As the police talk to her, they find out, Alberto was in fact at that place on February 11th, the day that Brittany disappeared.
Alberto's family member agrees to show police the room where he had stayed.
Sure, come on in.
Thank you.
There appeared to be a cleanup inside as there were large bleach spots in one of the bedrooms.
She says, oh yeah. Then there was that day that I came home and he said he had spilled Kool-Aid and he made me help him clean it up.
So literally just pouring bleach on spots in the carpet.
Investigators don't think the stains were made by Kool-Aid.
They fairly easily pull up the carpet to reveal the blood that had soaked through into the subfloor. And at this point, they know this is likely the crime scene. This is likely where Brittany Clardy was killed.
Investigators' suspicions are all but confirmed when they show Alberto's family member a photo of the bedsheet they found covering Brittany's body.
It was a very distinctive pattern on the sheet.
It was a picture of a bedsheet that was hers that she knew was in their apartment.
Oh my God, yeah, that's my bedsheet, that's it.
The sheet that was used to cover Brittany Clardy in the car We've now been able to trace back to coming from that residence.
Meanwhile, police officers across town are able to take Alberto Palmer into custody at the home in Woodbury, Minnesota, where his cell phone last pinged.
We were able to arrest the suspect without incident.
He had his backpack with him right where he was arrested. In his backpack was Brittany's iPhone.
Investigators immediately transport Alberto back to the station for questioning.
He's brought to the Anoka County Sheriff's Department where he gives an interview.
Alberto begins the interview by revealing some forthcoming information about his past.
I was diagnosed bipolar.
Okay.
I was going through therapy for over 10 years for anger problems, as well as I've been in a mental institution 3 times.
Alberto tells police he didn't do anything to Brittany Clardy, at least not that he can remember.
I tend to black out. It's hard for me to just remember things.
Is it black out and then do things that you would never dream of doing in real life?
Exactly.
For several hours, he denies knowing anything to do with Brittany's murder or even knowing Brittany.
But as the interrogation heats up, Alberto starts to tell a different story.
We would give him details, then it was like jogging his memory of what had taken place.
I need you to really dig deep into your noggin, and I want you to come out with the rest of it, because you know what happened.
I mean, Detective, I'm telling you what I remember.
Eventually, he acknowledges that he had solicited Brittany for sexual services. He acknowledged they had some degree of sex.
And finally, after hours of unrelenting interrogation, Alberto makes a shocking confession.
When I realized, like, what you just did, I honestly felt the devil inside of me.
Brittany is someone who made choices that some of us might question if we would make ourselves. And for others, it allows us to almost throw those folks away in our culture, that they're no longer worthy of our love, support, or resources. But we need to look to someone in such a vulnerable state as someone who deserves our love, attention, resources, and support, not our condemnation.
Nearly a month after 18-year-old Brittany Clardy vanished, Minnesota police have arrested Alberto Palmer for killing her and hiding her body.
During the interview, he was giving some information, but not coming clean with all the details of what had occurred.
Okay. All this, like, I'm stressed out, and just like, a lot of times I tend to forget things, I tend to black out.
He had remembered only bits and pieces.
But when Detective LaFamme confronts Alberto with the blood evidence they found in his family member's Brooklyn Park apartment, he starts to open up.
It's very, very clear from what happened up in Brooklyn Park that there was a lot of effort put into cleaning the room up, okay? There was a lot of effort to put this young lady in the car and to cover her up.
According to Alberto, he was experiencing one of his blackouts until it was too late.
First thing I saw was when I was putting on a car shirt.
Okay.
Honestly, the only thing I remember is going in the car.
Alberto tells Detective LaFamme it was like he was possessed by an evil spirit.
When I realized, like, what you just did, I felt the devil. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I'm satanic or nothing, but just like, I felt the devil.
Yeah. What else was the devil doing?
Alberto claims he doesn't remember anything else that happened that night. But when investigators resume questioning the next morning, they have a breakthrough.
In our second day of interviewing, Sergeant Russ had a go at him. I had been the nice detective, and Russ went in and took a little bit of a different approach, which was really effective.
I've dealt with a lot of cases similar to yours as far as, possessions and people getting possessed by a devil and poltergeist, like that, right? I get it, dude. You can get possessed, happens to you, and you're like, what the f am I doing? I get it, and I've dealt with it, and that's kind of why I deal with a lot of people when I came in and try and give you one last shot here. Right? Mike's a decent guy, but he's not real good with being possessed. You know what I'm saying? So what happened?
You got a pen?
You want to write it? So you get, all right, man, all right. Tell me it's recorded.
Alberto admits that on February 11th, while his family member was at work, he invited Brittany over to have sex.
He says that at some point they began to tussle, I believe were his words.
As we was having sex, it's like we started to like fight. And as we fighting, it's like we tussling in the room on the bed.
What are you doing? Get off me!
He describes that he choked her.
I choked her to the point where she was just laying there.
He choked her to the point of unconsciousness, believing she was dead. And while he was gathering himself, realized that she was still alive.
Alberto says he knew he couldn't let Brittany leave after what happened between them.
So I ran in the kitchen and was looking in the drawer.
He went through the kitchen drawers, found a hammer, brought a hammer up to the room.
As I ran back in the room, she was trying to get past me. He was still touching me again. So I hit her. I just kept hitting her. And it's like I couldn't stop.
He couldn't give an exact amount of times, but brutally hit her on the head numerous times until she wasn't moving anymore.
Once Brittany was dead, Alberto says he came up with a plan to get rid of her body.
The only thing I think is like, nah, I have to get this away from you. And that's when I put it in the car.
He admitted to taking the car up to the apartment lot and walking back, disposing of the keys on the way.
Immediately following Alberto's stunning confession, police charge him with first-degree murder.
You made a mistake. You're going to stand up and be accountable and responsible for that.
Based off of his previous altercations in Georgia and then him coming to Minnesota and doing the same thing, it seemed like he definitely was developing into somewhat of a psychopathic killer.
It was a relief to have him off the streets, so he couldn't hurt any more young women.
But before Alberto stands trial, investigators on the opposite side of the Mississippi River make a grisly discovery.
In May of 2013, a body had been found in the trunk of a car that was in an impound lot in Minneapolis.
When word of the events reaches detectives in St. Paul, they're struck by the similarities to Brittany's murder.
It was eerily similar to the Clarity case, so right away Alberto was kind of a person of interest.
The new victim is identified as 24-year-old Clarissa Cook, a young woman who lived in Brooklyn Park.
She had also been advertising escort services on Backpage.com. And upon doing some search warrants on her phone number, we were able to find out that Alberto was the last person that Clarissa's phone had any communication with.
Crime scene evidence eventually reveals that Clarissa was killed in the same apartment where Brittany Clardy's life was taken.
Blood samples did come back to Clarissa.
Armed with this new evidence, prosecutors believe they have what they need to convict Alberto of both murders. But to avoid a painful trial for the victims' families, they decide to offer him a plea deal.
One of the things we talked with the Clardy family about is anytime you go to trial, if somebody's convicted, that's not the end of it. A conviction will automatically go to Supreme Court on appeal. The family didn't want to go through that emotional roller coaster.
In exchange for pleading guilty to the murders of Brittany Clardy and Clarissa Cook, Alberto manages to avoid a life sentence.
What this means is Mr. Palmer serves 30 years before the possibility of parole. The minute he's paroled, if he ever is, he begins his 40-year sentence for the murder of Brittany Clardy. So likely Mr. Palmer will never be released from custody.
For the loved ones of Alberto Palmer's victims, it's a bittersweet conclusion to an unthinkable tragedy.
Both Brittany and Clarissa were very young females. They had their whole entire lives ahead of them.
It's sad and very tragic what happened.
Brittany was a very responsible girl. Brittany did all the right things, and nobody knew about this secret side of what she was doing. Her family didn't as well. It can happen to anyone. So all people, all parents need to be really vigilant.
Brittany is all of us. I think we all need to be really honest about how vulnerable we all are in any given day.
Oh, weren't you suicidal last year? Why don't you go ahead and kill yourself?
Was it suicide or something more sinister?
I definitely believe that my brother was murdered. I believe an argument took place, and I believe that my brother was shot and killed.
I don't think Chris killed himself. I don't believe that.
It just was a lot going on that just didn't make no sense, you know what I'm saying?
If someone told me in '86, in 2008, you'll still be in the music business, I would have said, yeah, right. 2008, will I be alive?
Everybody else, but no one's doing it for me. No one's doing it for me.
The amazing life and controversial death of Chris Lighty on Celebrity Crime Files. He was a brash and innovative music executive, and he was wildly successful.
He was the consummate sidewalk executive, man. It wasn't about, you know, the MBA or the PhD, just acquired business acumen through years of experience.
There's so many incredible talent came through the Violator system under his watch. He was just an amazing caretaker.
He was also a father of 6, a brother, and a loving son. And at 44 years old, he was dead.
Devastation. I was done. You know, he's part of us. You know, it's like part of us died.
If you would have gave me a list of 20 to 50 people in hip hop that I would think would not be here anymore, I would not have Chris Lighty on that list.
The details of Chris Lighty's death remain mysterious. Here are the facts. After an argument with his wife, Veronica, Chris had a brief phone call with his accountant and walked to the patio of his 5-level condo. What happened next is in dispute. A shot was fired and Veronica called the police. They arrived to find Chris Lighty dead, a bullet in his head, his body face up, a 9mm pistol nearby.
Just to think about my boy sitting there, he actually pulled a trigger. That's rough. I can't even fathom that.
In my heart of hearts, and I don't believe Chris committed suicide. And I'll take it to my grave. I don't believe it. I know him. I know what kind of guy he was. I just don't believe it.
Police ruled Lighty's death a suicide. But Lighty's client and close friend 50 Cent hired a private investigator to dig a little deeper.
I think that the case was closed by the police department too quickly. Veronica said he killed himself, and basically they did the autopsy and they closed it. Knowing what I know now, I certainly have my questions.
I hope that the investigation is reopened and that we just, you know, find out the truth. Everyone should be questioned and no one's word should be taken just because.
More than anything, I wanted to, you know, for my mother to have some closure.
I love him and I miss him.
Born in May of 1968, Chris Lighty was raised near New York's notorious Bronx River Projects.
He was about 6 years old when his father and I were divorced, and he had 3 younger siblings under him. And I was working, so he helped me tremendously.
Growing up in the Bronx, Castle Hill, I mean, I think we've seen it all, from people being stripped butt naked in front of the apartments and beat to death.
The projects may have been dangerous, but they were also at the nexus of a musical revolution. In his teens, Chris fell in love with the hip-hop culture and became a b-boy.
Man, it was fun growing up in the Bronx in the 70s and the 80s. You know, we used to go to jams in the parks. You know, everybody used to plug in, get the electricity from the light poles.
When you're born in the Bronx and you came up in the Bronx, it belongs to you. It is your culture. It's in your blood. And Chris was right there on the pulse of it. It was through his veins.
Chris and his homeboys were regulars in legendary clubs like Latin Quarters and Union Square.
Chris Lighty was a brute, my nigga. I done watched him fight a lot of niggas with them violators. That's what that name came from. They was violating niggas, B.
Hey, I remember that.
Chris Lighty and about 8 of them niggas, yo. And he was the youngest nigga. That's where that baby Chris came from.
They never started anything. But whatever came their way, they finished it. And that's why I think they always gained a lot of respect.
Red used to see us do what we used to do, and he used to call us. He's like, you know what, y'all a bunch of violators. And then boom, violators came, and they stuck with us.
The violators was known for, you know, handling their business. Chris was a baby face. So the girls always loved, you know, somebody that gonna approach them and talk them out of whatever, you know. So that's how Chris got the name Baby Chris.
Baby Chris and the Violators provided security and carried records for Cool DJ Red Alert, one of NYC's top jocks.
That's how you made your bones in those days.
What I saw as Baby Chris, very bright, very sharp. From what I learned at an early stage, that he was going to school and also he was working. But I know he was also taking an electrician, and that was his position, working for, I think, Metro North. So as he was doing a balance of both, I said, this guy, I got something on the cap.
When Red Alert's schedule got too hectic, he enlisted Chris.
When I had the Jungle Brothers, when they first released some of their songs, you know, I couldn't move around because they was under management and on production, but I needed somebody moving around with them, so that's when I assigned him.
On the road, Chris was all business and began to earn a reputation as a tough-as-nails manager. His portfolio soon expanded to include management of the bands in the Native Tongues.
Native Tongues was a collective of conscious artists, you know, with a more Afrocentric mentality who reflected a more positive part of hip-hop.
Chris was a visionary. He had that vision to see, well, let me start working with these young groups that were coming up, because the established guys really wasn't going to let a guy as young as Chris work with them at the time.
What Chris was able to do was he was able to think outside the box. He was a visionary in terms of he didn't look at hip-hop as something that had to stay in a certain lane.
Chris marketed Native Tongues to white college kids, reaching outside hip-hop's traditional fan base. His ingenuity was rewarded when famed rap executives Leor Cohen and Russell Simmons invited him to join them at Rush Management. At Rush, Chris helped manage high-profile artists like Will Smith, Eric B. and Rakim, Run DMC, and LL Cool J.
Leor Cohen, I consider him my father. No question. He brought me up in the music industry, guided me, gave me more opportunities than anyone, allowed me to make a lot of money in the Def Jam early days and Rush Management early days.
When Rush closed its doors, Cohen and Simmons gave Lighty their blessing to take some of their clients and start his own company.
I think he took advantage of the fact that, right, you know, I've been under Russ. I see how Russell is running his management company. Why don't I just start my own? And Violator was born.
Chris Lighty would turn Violator Management into a multi-million-dollar empire without ever losing touch with his roots.
What's up with your boy 50? You need to control your artists, control
Chris took that street mentality that he had and he brought it over to his business. And when he had to go to bat for his artists, that's what he did.
Next time you cost me money, there's gonna be a problem.
I think if you didn't know him, he may have come off as the nicest you ever met, you know?
Make sure that Chris did what he was supposed to do, was good for the company. Chris ended up getting some points off DMX's album because of it. Very smart guy. Me, I would have wanted to fight. Chris manipulated.
1990s, Chris Lighty opened Violator Management. The client list included Missy Elliott, P. Diddy, and LL Cool J.
He was very, very good at marketing. He really understood the culture from a marketing standpoint, you know? And he was a hustler, you know? He was a hustler in every sense of the word. He was about getting the money, and he was also about taking it to the next level and doing that next thing.
He saw deals that were being made for rock groups and for other genres and felt like hip-hop could do this, and we are the young hip culture. So he wasn't afraid to go in the rooms and ask for the right amount of money for the right deal for his clients.
They had Toucan Sam rapping at one time, and it always perturbed us, it always angered us, because it was always somebody that was corny that was rapping. And Chris had the vision to say, listen, if you're gonna use hip-hop to sell your products, at least go to the source and get it done correctly.
It was more crawl, walk, run. When we first started early on in hip-hop, no one wanted to be part of brands. And then one of my very first deals was Tribe Called Quest and Sprite.
Tribe had a huge following at the time, and Sprite is always known for that, you know, urban edge per se. So it was just a perfect match for the two of them.
The deal was, we'll be in the commercial, but only 8 seconds. And you have to pay us this amount of money because we know our worth. And they actually agreed to it, and we said, oh, okay.
That's what made him so phenomenal. He learned exactly how to move and shake amongst the greatest of the executives, but without having to compromise the integrity or the moral fiber that came with being who he was as a South Bronx dude.
In 97, Chris took it to the next level, landing LL Cool J a Gap ad in which he rapped while wearing a hat promoting streetwear brand FUBU, and even snuck the company's motto, "For us, by us," into his rhyme. FUBU, owned by childhood friends of LL's, blew up.
I got some brothers over here, you know, we doing something, and we working on something. I'm willing to do business with you. I'll do the corporate dance with you. This is the only way I'm gonna do it, is with this. Well, yo, we need clearance. Well, I own it. I'm clearing it right now.
He's like, why can't we get what these rock stars get or these pop stars get? We're selling it just as many records, sometimes more.
We were able to walk away from these deals with 2-year commitments for $3-4 million.
Chris was all about the Jedi mind trick. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in the Vulcan mind mount, and you know, he was slick. You know, he read Machiavelli many nights.
The branding companies had to start changing them. You know, the structure of the deals, because, you know, we was running in there doing Brinks truck jobs.
At 6'2" and 240 pounds, Chris Lighty had no trouble throwing his weight around. Little did he know that it would be a 90-pound woman that would prove to be his toughest foe.
What do you do all day?
What do I do all day? I look after I take care of you and all your...
She drove him crazy. Every single chance that she got. Every single chance.
Well, who the f*** that?
She picked up a samurai sword and clocked him over the head with it.
Why do you have to start every time?
It concerns me too.
This has nothing to do with it. Just let me do this.
In the late 90s, Chris Lighty's business went to new heights.
Violator was also a record company. You know, he had Warren G, who sold over 3 million albums, his first record. He also had Foxy Brown, who was also successful with her first album. He also was the plug for Jay-Z if you think about it, of Jay-Z really getting into the game, because Jay-Z's first single was with Foxy Brown. It had to be cleared by Chris Lighty.
Chris's family had grown as well. He had a daughter, Tiffany, twin girls, and another daughter and a son.
I didn't always get to see him as much as I wanted to, but he definitely put forth a lot of effort to come and see me. I remember when he was giving me my curfew for the first time. I just got my license, I got a car, and he turned on The Freaks Come Out at Night. So everything like always went back to like hip hop, and like it was like a hip hop life lesson. And he was like, "The freaks come out at night." And then I was like, "What does this have to do with me?" He was like, "This is why you can't stay out late." He was like, "So I need you home at this time." And then he was like playing the music and turning it up, and I was getting so mad. But, you know, I understood, yeah.
In 1999, Chris eloped and married Veronica, who had one daughter of her own. They would eventually have a child together as well.
She focused me a lot. I think if I didn't have the success, I probably wouldn't have gotten married. And then the marriage then leads to more success because you want to do for your family, you want to more do for your wife. So it's an interesting situation.
My brother met Veronica out at the parties and all that, so. Veronica worked for American Express when she met my brother. Then she stopped working for American Express once they started dating. To me, I was kind of a little perplexed with the whole Veronica situation because I didn't think that she was on his level.
The marriage immediately caused tension within his family.
I tried very hard to have a peaceful relationship with her, but by within 3 years of the marriage, that was impossible. She is extremely argumentative, very divisive.
She took any chance that she could get to separate the family. You know, like if we come around, she's staying at the hotel. And you'll be like, huh? What's going on here?
Chris's troubles at home didn't impact his business. By the mid-2000s, he was managing the top artists in the industry.
To deal with a Mariah Carey and a Diddy, I think it's hard for any normal human being to fathom dealing with titans like that, those egos, those personalities. There was something special about him that they saw in him to really trust him with their careers.
Always ahead of the curve, Lighty befriended up-and-coming rapper Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. Sensing that he'd found a kindred spirit, 50 took Chris on as his manager.
This was still raw 50 Cent. You know, this was a guy that was still out in the streets.
Everybody was fearful of this guy. He was the most feared guy in New York City, and Chris was a big part of that.
Chris embraced 50's dark past and chose to market it to a broad audience, and it worked. 50 Cent's debut album, Get Rich or Die Trying, shot to #1 on the Billboard 100 chart and stayed there for 9 straight weeks.
They showed that what it take for a guy who's been shot 9 times in the street to be polished up, brought up, and presented for the majority to accept.
Corporate America really started to pay attention to Chris Lighty. You know, like pay attention to Violator and pay attention to 50.
Chris had already negotiated a deal for Busta Rhymes with Courvoisier, and liquor companies were knocking down his door for 50. But Chris and 50 had bigger dreams.
We sat in a room, 50 and I, and 50 said, you know what? All these spirit companies are calling. We should do something that's more mass. Let's do something that everyone can relate to and everyone needs, water.
When you really think about it, water is something that everybody needs. It's a fundamental need. And that gives you a sense of how big these guys were thinking. These guys were talking about world domination. They wanted to take over the world.
Chris negotiated a historic partnership with Vitamin Water that gave 50 Cent less pay up front in exchange for a small stake in the company.
It was all about getting paid according to the proof in the pudding. If we helped raise sales, we would get paid.
What Chris knew about not taking all the money up front, he learned from Russell and Lior. He learned the value of ownership, and that it was more valuable to have ownership of something than to just take the check. And I think that that's how he approached deals with brands. And if it was a brand that you could get ownership, take ownership. If it was a brand that wasn't going to give you ownership, like you're not going to get ownership out of Coca-Cola or someone like that, then, you know, you take the biggest check that you can get.
And it was Coca-Cola that delivered that check when they acquired Vitamin Water's parent company, Glaceau, for $4.1 billion. The sale netted 50 Cent more than $50 million, and Chris a hefty commission.
You can join forces with another brand, i.e. Vitamin Water, and help build that brand through your pop culture effect and really move the envelope and push the envelope. And if you do it correctly and the audience sees that it's true, they'll buy it, they'll love it, and, you know, corporate America will come knocking.
Chris Lighty had made plenty of Benjamins from corporate America, but his relationship with 50 Cent would take him back deeper into the rough side of the streets.
Chris, one thing about him, he wasn't a punk. If Fifth went, Chris gonna go. You know, that's what kind of dude he was, you know. He didn't have no problem throwing his hands.
As my manager, as my brother, and as my friend, has been responsible for every red cent that made me a very well. His name is Chris, the original violator, Lighty.
By the mid-2000s, Chris Lighty had clawed his way to boss status in the music game. He was living a lifestyle much like the rappers he represented, flying on private jets and taking lavish vacations with his family. He had a condo in Manhattan and a mansion in New Jersey.
He was a philosopher, a guidance counselor, a father figure, a brother, a loyal friend. He was just all of these things. Chris took care of a bunch of people, like how your mother would take care of her child, you know what I'm saying?
Chris was there for his artists during the good times and the bad. When 50 Cent had beef with a former friend, The Game, Chris had his back.
The Game was signed to G-Unit, which was obviously managed by Chris Lighty. Then there was a split between The Game and 50. Once that happened, The Game is now managed by Jimmy Henchman, and 50 Cent is now managed by Chris Lighty still, and Violator.
As 50 Cent was kicking The Game out of his crew live on the air at NYC's Hot 97 in February of 2005, The Game and a few of his goons went up to the station. A shootout ensued, and a friend of The Game was wounded. He survived, but the beef was on.
When you in that person's manager, you're looked as part of that person's clique. So if that person has a beef, that beef becomes your beef, because people feel like as a manager, you can back your artists down from whatever they're saying, or you're backing whatever they're saying.
The war lasted for years, and Chris was often on the front line. In 2009, Jimmy Henchman's crew fired shots at the front door of Violator's Manhattan office and into an unoccupied car they believed was carrying Lighty. Not long after, Chris was arrested for gun possession. He pled no contest and was given probation.
I don't want to promote anybody carrying guns or anything like that, but you know, I think that when you reach a certain plateau, or it's a lot of jealousy that comes with it, so you have to be smart about protecting yourself.
Chris Lighty was dodging bullets in the streets and was fighting to keep a multi-million-dollar music company afloat as the economy crumbled. Like his clients said, more money, more problems.
If you employ 50 people, it's 50 families you have to worry about. You know, these are 50 households that you're trying to make, you know, every decision that you make, whether it's with a Vitamin Water or whether it's signing, you know, the latest artist. that money is not for your pockets. The money goes back into the fund that's taking care of 50 families, you know? And that guy had the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Chris's burdens were compounded by his unstable relationship with his wife, Veronica. They'd both been unfaithful and couldn't get along.
It's just always a fight with everything, big or small, whether it's possibly another woman or it was just petty fights.
Why does it always have to be another woman? Why is there always somebody else?
She tried to do everything in her power to threaten my brother, even to the point of not letting him see the child that they had together, you know.
Veronica told a reporter, "We had a passionate relationship. We fought all the time."
I did ask him why is he still with her? Why don't you just divorce her? Why don't you just leave? And he seemed to have still cared for her.
There were often verbal spats and frequent physical fights. Their children lived in constant fear.
I go downstairs and they're fighting. Mostly she's just hitting him, trying to get him to hit her so that she can call the cops and get him arrested. She picked up a samurai sword that was in the house from a trip from Japan. She didn't open it, but it was still in the wooden case, and clocked him over the head with it. And he got a knot on the side of his head.
My son has had to have medical attention more than once when she has broken champagne bottles over his head. You know, she's a small woman, but she's a volatile woman.
A storm was brewing inside of Chris Lighty, a storm friends and family never saw coming.
I, to this day, swear he was too strong a person and it was a moment of weakness. And that's how I'm riding with it.
Frequent.
In my own company, we're all doing some type of downsizing to weather the storm.
You know, the crown is heavy, man. To he who much is given, much is required. And pressure could either burst pipes or make diamonds, homie.
Once a responsible and frugal executive, Chris couldn't keep it together anymore. He accrued a $5 million tax bill.
Times were a little rough, you know, they had the recession and everything. I just moved out of the $5 million Chelsea apartment. Now living in Riverdale, you know, downsizing, you know, trying to manage his money.
That same year, Veronica Lighty filed for divorce.
I used to beg him, yo, let that girl go, B. She's not worth it.
According to Veronica, she ultimately retracted the divorce request as a Father's Day gift to Chris, but tension between them remained high.
I guess when you're in love, you put up with a lot of things. I don't know why. I honestly cannot explain like why he put up with all of the madness.
He was the one solving everyone else's problems, you know, but who did he go to, you know, and who did he feel comfortable enough to discuss any of these issues with? You know, a lot of times we don't feel comfortable, especially in hip hop, you know, in urban culture. We don't know how to communicate that way. We don't know how to show that we are vulnerable.
It's harder for men. Boys are born, bred, and raised to suck it up, to be a man, don't cry, do not show emotion by any means. You just don't do that, because then you get called all kinds of sissy names and other words, the P word, you know? And so it's hard to be a man in this culture. It's particularly hard to be a black man in America.
In June of 2011, Chris was treated for depression at a Connecticut hospital, but returned more stressed than ever. A few months later, he merged Violator with another management company. At the announcement, he told his gathered employees, "My name is Chris Lighty. I'm not in a good mood right now. That's all I'm going to say." In July 2012, he tweeted, "The blueprint to happiness doesn't start with money or success."
There were some things that Chris was going through that he didn't know how to articulate. I wish I had known that my buddy was stressed out.
You could see that in the last couple of years, Chris was changing a little bit. I think that primarily came from the personal side.
I've been in that place. There have been times where you just feel completely overwhelmed and no one to talk to, and you're not sure what to do next and how do you get back right.
On August 30th, 2012, Chris Lighty dropped Tiffany off at the airport and doubled back to the Riverdale home he shared with Veronica and their kids.
He was en route back to the house and saw the movers and was like, what the hell's going on? They're moving your stuff out. You know, the movers told him, we're moving your stuff out. No, y'all not. Stop right now.
Chris spoke on the phone to his accountant, who told him of a new hefty tax bill, and then walked out on his patio. Moments later, a shot rang out. Veronica called the police, and when they arrived, they found Chris dead with a gun nearby. Veronica told investigators that Chris, suffering from severe depression, had uttered, "I'm tired of this," and then shot himself. Authorities officially ruled Chris Lighty's death a suicide a few days later.
The police that were there took the word of Veronica stating that my brother was on medication. She brought down 3 bottles of medication and said that he was on depression medication.
I believe that when Chris went to go take his daughter to the airport, she expected Chris to go from there to the office. She didn't expect Chris to double back and come back to the house. When Chris got there, I believe that he was like, there's no way you're gonna put me out of the house that I paid for. I believe an argument took place, and I believe that my brother was shot and killed.
Well, I know that the game can get stressful enough to make you feel like that, but I don't think he would go over the edge. I don't think Chris did that, man. I don't think he did it.
There's no ballistic tests on the gun. There's the Veronica and her ex-husband happened to be the first guy on the scene. So if her ex-husband is the first guy on the scene and she's saying that she's the only one there, why wasn't their clothes, their hands tested, just to make sure that this wasn't a murder?
This is really my bone of contention with the city because they did not do a thorough investigation. There were 2 movers at my son's house that were not questioned. There were 2 nannies at my son's house that were not questioned.
At the time, after I put my brother in the back of the truck, the nurse is looking crazy. She has this crazy look on her face. So I run over there and I'm like, what's going on? She's like, Veronica, she's saying that y'all don't want an autopsy. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? I want an autopsy. I want an autopsy, definitely.
Both the NYPD and Veronica Lighty declined to be interviewed or make any statement for this program. And Veronica's only public statement since Chris's death, she told a reporter, Chris had a lot of weight on his shoulders. Let him die proud, at peace. Chris Lighty's Manhattan funeral service was attended by nearly every superstar in hip-hop.
Just so the type of man that my brother was, that, that these guys held in such high esteem.
Buster was speaking on behalf of Chris, and he was telling stories that Chris has been holding him down for so long, and all they wanted to do is get this money, and they finally got it. And then Buster spent it all. And then he called Chris, and Chris would help him get it again.
And he'd do it again.
And he'd do it again.
I said to Chris, yo, I need like $200,000. And Chris was like, don't worry about it. We're going to find a way to get you this quick $200,000. And I was like, yo, I need this in 30 days. And he was like, all right, cool. Chris calls me back one day and he was like, yo, I found your 200,000, right? And I was like, cause what the you gotta do to get it? He was like, you gotta go to Africa, nigga. He found the bread, but I just was mad as hell that I had to go all the way over there to get it. The moral of the story was how Chris would go to the end of the earth to help you find a way. That's the Chris I know.
At the service, Chris's family sat on one side of the aisle, with his wife's family on the other.
I love him and I miss him terribly, as do the rest of my children and his children, and I'm sure his friends. But I would implore the city of New York to please take another look at this case and reopen it so that we can find out what happened to my son.
Grieving and still unwilling to accept the official cause of death, Chris's mother asked 50 Cent to hire a private investigator.
I honestly can't wrap my head around the idea of him shooting himself.
I think that the case was closed by the police department too quickly. Veronica said he killed himself, and basically they did the autopsy and they closed it. Knowing what I know now, I certainly have my questions.
With the request still pending, the investigator remains tight-lipped about what he discovered.
I think that there was enough gray area from what we did up to a point to certainly warrant further investigation. There were questions that were left unanswered.
They said that if we wanted ballistics and DNA done, we, as the family, would have to pay for it to have done. Well, that's fine. We're willing to do that. But here we are, almost 2 years later, and we still haven't gotten the samples from the city to do it. So what is the problem?
I hate that on the internet, as soon as you type in Chris Lighty, it's like death and suicide, and, you know, I hate that that kind of overshadows, you know, who he was.
I don't think there'll be another Chris Lighty, but there'll be a lot of people that were touched by him that in some way will allow his spirit to live on.
I hope that his children will remember him as a good father, good provider, that he loved life and he loved them.
Being a prize fighter, you take too many shots to the head. We all did.
Riddick Bowe lost it.
I wanted to be a father to my kids. I wanted to be the man my father wasn't.
You were kidnapping your family. You have weapons in the car. He didn't act like the heavyweight champion of the world anymore. He acted like a criminal.
Trevor's a little nuts. He channeled that craziness inside the ring. He certainly didn't know how to control it when he was outside of the ring.
Your Honor, I'm innocent. I'm telling you, I'm innocent. And you all punish an innocent felon man.
The sexual assault on the babysitter obviously is pretty nasty.
Go to jail, get out. Go to jail, get out.
After all I've accomplished already, shy shoes, I was just trying to make money. Trying to make money real fast.
This is a story of crime and punishment. From contenders to offenders on Celebrity Crime Files.
champion of the world is the most prestigious honor you can bestow on a man. You know, he's better known than the President of the United States.
I got on my knees and I prayed and said, Lord, thank you for allowing me to be the heavyweight champion of the world.
The heavyweight boxing champ is the king of the jungle. The baddest dude on the planet.
Boxers come from all walks of life. Most of the guys were all from the ghetto. And the toughness came out, the streetness, the will to survive came out because you're fighting for your life.
There's rules in the ring, there's not rules in the street.
Often with prize fighters, there's such an innate aggression already ingrained in them. It's a natural thing. Their most simple mode of conflict resolution comes with these. Once you step outside of the ring, there's laws, there's rules, there's expectations.
I've seen it too many times over the years, and I've also seen many fighters end up dead.
Like most successful boxers, future heavyweight champion Riddick Bowe started at the bottom, the 12th of his single mother's 13 children.
Riddick Bowe, he was in Brownsville, Brooklyn, which is one of the realest ghettos that God ever created.
I had to fight to survive.
Riddick found an escape in boxing, and as an amateur, he started to progress.
The guy with tremendous athleticism. Fundamentally, he was a very gifted fighter.
Bowe compiled an impressive 104-18 record as an amateur, earning the nickname Big Daddy and qualifying for the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. But the streets that Bowe had escaped were beginning to claim his family.
My sister had just been murdered. My brother was dying of AIDS and things of that nature. But when I thought about my sister and my brother, it gave me energy to fight.
Fueled by tragedy, 20-year-old Riddick Bowe won the silver medal. He returned home and married his high school sweetheart, Judy. And 6 months later, he turned pro.
He felt he was the best in the world. Felt he could beat anybody.
Big Daddy won his first 31 fights, 27 by knockout or TKO. In November of 1992, Bowe took on undefeated Evander Holyfield for the heavyweight championship of the world. In a classic toe-to-toe battle later dubbed the Fight of the Year, Bowe handed Holyfield his first defeat and became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
He beat me, fair and straight. I kind of felt like I was in a dream. And it took me a couple of days to actually really realize that I was the heavyweight champion of the world.
Riddick Bowe won the title in less than 4 years after winning the silver medal. It's the fastest ascension to the heavyweight title in history, ever. And once he won the title, as we know, things changed.
Less than a year later, after 2 successful title defenses, Bowe granted Holyfield a rematch, but the champ was criticized when he entered the ring 11 pounds heavier than he'd been in their first bout. After the fight was interrupted by the infamous Fan Man, Bowe lost a close decision and his coveted title.
He cried like a baby in the airplane going back home when he lost his title. That changes you, because your world changes overnight from being heavyweight champion of the world to not being champion of the world.
In his next fight, Bowe was disqualified when he knocked out Buster Mathis while Mathis was on a knee. After 3 victories, including the rubber match with Holyfield, Bowe twice took on Polish heavyweight Andrew Golota, who entered with a reputation as a dirty fighter.
Riddick Bowe didn't want to fight. He just didn't want to fight. He made a lot of money. Had trouble getting him going. In camp, I bet you he didn't box 15 good rounds.
Golota lived up to his reputation, earning disqualifications in both bouts for vicious low blows.
Galata starts hitting Bo low. It doesn't stop, even though he's clearly winning the fight. Wayne Kelly then has to call the fight. He has to disqualify Andrew Galata. This is after Bo had taken a vicious beating.
Stupid. Those were career destruction punches. It was terrible.
The low blows were painful, but it was Bo's declining defense that proved more destructive. Galata landed numerous headshots, and the repercussions were immediate.
He had acute, immediate brain damage from the second Galata fight, and it irrevocably changed the course of Riddick Bowe's life.
As far as traumatic brain injury is concerned, it can result in behavioral symptoms, personality changes, anger, irritability, in addition to things like memory loss. I used to use the film of him as he spoke earlier with the film of how he spoke after the second Galata fight.
I don't know what to say. But I will say I'm ready. I feel good, and I'm looking forward very much to Thursday night. I was a bit winded, but like always, I always thought I can giggle out. I mean, you gotta look at it like this in this aspect. Galata's somewhat, fresh. He hasn't had as many fights, so therefore he don't get his time. But as soon as fatigue set in a little bit, that's when he started hitting me low.
If you don't put those two things together, it's very easy to discount what happened after the second Galata fight and how bad he spoke and how bad he looked.
After the Galata fight, Bo retired with 40 career wins and only 1 loss. But Riddick Bowe was about to compile a much less enviable record.
Riddick Bowe's career was cut short, and he realized it. And then he started to get desperate, and then that's when things with his family started to fall out.
In December of 1996, just weeks after his costly second victory over Andrew Galata, Riddick Bowe made a bizarre announcement.
Joined the United States Marine Corps. That's y'all big surprise today.
What? Because for a guy that has trouble getting up and doing his road work and not eating McDonald's the day of the fight, you're telling me that you're gonna get up at 5 in the morning and deal with Marines that are trying to discipline you and get you ready for war?
Bowe lasted only 3 days.
I spoke to Judy on the phone, and she's telling me, "Oh, boy, I need you to come home. I love you," whatever the case may be. So I said, "Okay, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go home."
That right there made everybody around Bo go, whoa, what's going on? This is an erratic, incongruous decision. What is going on with him emotionally? What's going on with him mentally?
Just a few months after his fiasco with the Marines, Bo was charged with assault on his wife, Judy, and later on his adult nephew, Joey. 3 months later, police were called after Bo and his sister, Thelma, had a physical altercation. Nobody was arrested.
Bo was in a position in which he was losing his family. He lost his boxing career. His money was dwindling.
Tired of the abusive, unpredictable behavior patterns she was seeing with Riddick, Judy Bowe left her husband and moved to Cornelius, North Carolina with their children.
Judy was kind of stepping back more and more and more and more, seeing other men. At some point during that process, Riddick Bowe lost it.
Listen, I wanted to be a father to my kids. I wanted to be there for them. I never had that, And I wanted to be the man my father wasn't. When she took the kid and she left, her mother called me and said, "Boy, listen, how's Jack work? Stop being a bitch. Go down and get your wife and kids."
A desperate Riddick Bowe, armed with a buck knife, pepper spray, duct tape, and a flashlight, drove to Cornelius, North Carolina to literally take his family back.
He picked a couple of the kids up at the bus stop and then went to Mrs. Bowe's house.
And he grabs Judy and the kids. And he tells her he's ready to use these materials that he's brought to her house.
Mr. Bowe forced his way into the house and had her come and get in the car with him and said, "We're going home, we're going to get We're going to work things out. Things are going to be better. We're going to be a family again. They left Cornelius, went north on I-77.
You are kidnapping your family. Your children are in the back seat. You have weapons in the car. These are the actions of an individual that has lost touch with reality.
With his family held hostage in his SUV, the former heavyweight champ drove more than 200 miles up the East Coast.
Once they got into Virginia, she was able to get him to stop at a McDonald's.
She said, okay, the kids are hungry. They stop and give them something to eat. Okay, that sounds a good idea. So we stopped at McDonald's. She said, let me hold your cell phone. I gotta use the bathroom. I'm gonna call my brother Greg to get the stuff ready to move it back up to Maryland. I said, okay, I'm gonna happen one night. She go in the bathroom for about 15 minutes. She said, well, I want you to know something. I called the police. Really, why you call the police? She goes, I changed my mind, I don't wanna go back with you.
Bo was taken to a psychiatric ward for observation and later arrested for abducting his family.
I was a huge fan of his. I loved to watch him box and to see him go from there to what transpired in us was just, you know, it just kind of made you wonder how that can happen.
I don't think he meant to commit the crime of kidnapping.
People say he kidnapped his wife, and whatever terms that you put it in, you make it worse than it really is. You talking about somebody been dating somebody ever since they 13 or 14 years old.
I did something because of love. I never hurt nobody. I guess it's life, that's how it unfolded. But I love everybody and everything, so I think if you know me, or you get to know me, I'm not a violent guy. What I should have been charged with is a broken heart. I haven't seen my kids now, I couldn't tell how many years.
Mr. Bo pled guilty to interstate domestic violence. That was an agreement that was reached with his representatives and him and the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office.
The authorities called me and told me I had to come to North Carolina to appear in court. I did that. Looking at either 22 years or you can cop out to this plea for a year and a half. Man, I jumped in that year and a half so fast, made your head. That year and a half. He didn't even get finished saying it. Year and a half, let me get that. At this point, I'm glad this is behind me. I can, move on and be better because of it, Hopefully I can get myself together and I look for something positive in the future.
In an effort to reduce his sentence further, Bo's defense team, which included Johnny Cochran, used the video of Bo's badly slurred speech after the Galata fight as evidence Bo had suffered brain damage.
If you look at the stages of CTE or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, there's different stages of it, and one of those stages involves behavioral changes, and those behavioral changes can result in violent outbursts, aggressive behavior, personality changes.
I think the judge looked at the case in front of him and saw that there was some psychological elements.
With the stipulation that Bo never fight again, the judge shortened his sentence to 30 days, surmising that Bo's brain damage had indeed played a part in the crimes he committed.
So the judge did buy it, but gave himself a back door. So you're not going to use this defense and then go fight Evander Holyfield for $20 million. You're saying that boxing is the reason you have brain damage, and that subsequently that brain damage led you to commit nefarious acts. If that's the case, you can't box.
Riddick Bowe's life was falling apart. He needed stability. Judy filed for divorce, and 2 years later, Bowe married Terry Blackney. But in 2001, after a domestic dispute got ugly, Bowe was arrested for assault on Terry, which resulted in her having cuts on her knees and her elbows. Because Bowe was on probation, he was sent to prison for 17 months.
I longed for my wife. I wanted to be with my wife. And I knew that when I came home, we were gonna have a baby. I just couldn't wait for the day to come where I can go home and just be with her. I was under the impression that when I came out, I would resume my boxing career. But then people started saying, oh, well, they say you got brain damage, you got this, you got that.
I think his post-incarceration campaign towards, winning the heavyweight title again and insisting on fighting after he had used pugilistic dementia as his defense was delusion and the yearning to reclaim his respect.
Life after boxing is never easy for a fighter. In 2005, after earning more than $50 million in his career, 38-year-old Riddick Bowe filed for bankruptcy.
His boxing career is over. He's a laughingstock, of the boxing community. His money's going out of the window like crazy.
Bowe fought once in 2008, earning $30,000. A year later, he was selling his autograph at a New Jersey flea market for $65. He told a reporter, "I'm not perfect, but I'm not the worst either. God brought me this far, he's not done with me yet." Well, for boxers.
Most people that box, most people that fight, they came from a hard life, a hard upbringing.
Fighters come from disenfranchised communities. Usually they come from broken families, and then they continue down this road, and it leads them to the squared circle.
Henry Tillman grew up in the West Coast version of Brownsville, South Central Los Angeles.
South LA back then, it was like a hard little small city, Pretty much the gangs were surrounding that little circle.
Crime was higher than it is now. Homicides, a lot of robberies, a lot of theft.
But I've been told by people that were close to the situation that Henry Tillman always had a disposition to crime.
Then I wound up in California Youth Authority, YTS, Youth Training School, with a 5-year bid for armed robbery with a gun. I was over at somebody's house who was shooting dice, and I caught him with the loaded dice and pulled a gun on me. So I just grabbed him and the gun. And we both fell, and I wound up with the gun. I just hit him with it and ran. And that's the robbery. They don't explain on the record.
While in the custody of the state, Tillman was introduced to boxing by Mercer Smitty Smith. Tall and strong, Tillman showed immediate talent.
After 6 months later, I was beating everybody up in the institution. They would bring the guys from the street that would win the tournaments, and I would box them and beat them.
Once home from his bid, 23-year-old Tillman's rise in the amateur ranks was swift. In 1983, with just a dozen fights under his belt, he earned a silver medal in the heavyweight division at the prestigious Pan Am Games. The light heavyweight silver medalist was a future rival, Evander Holyfield.
He was like me, but just from Atlanta. Nobody knew him, unknown. And so me and Holyfield kind of gravitated to each other.
Tim is one of them nice guys, but Tim is one of them guys that he ain't gonna let you push over.
A year later, Tillman used his reach and lightning-fast jab to defeat Mike Tyson twice and earn a spot on the 1984 Olympic boxing team.
One thing I did see was that Mike didn't know how to cut the ring off. He'd follow you. And so my trainer, Mercer Smith, said, you just make circles. And when you make that circle, he turned to come after you, you stop real quick and hit him and keep moving again.
Henry just boxed him. Stick the jab in his face, moved around him, gave him angles, and basically gave him a boxing lesson.
At the Olympic Games, in front of friends and family, just a few miles from the hard streets where he'd found trouble as a teen, 24-year-old Henry Tillman captured a gold medal.
And just being in my own backyard, that was really special because both my parents was able to come to every bout and watch me, and then watch me win the gold medal. It was basically like a Cinderella dream come true.
He was one of the more decorated amateurs that U.S. boxing has ever seen. He was fantastic. He was good looking. He was tall. So the general thought was coming out of that Olympics that he was going to do some serious damage.
3 months after the Olympics, Tillman turned pro, winning his first 10 fights, 7 by knockout or TKO.
Everybody was proud and everybody was happy for him.
you know, a chance to make a lot of money and be a big-time millionaire and all that.
After winning 4 of his next 5 fights, Tillman took on his friend and former Olympic teammate Evander Holyfield for the WBA cruiserweight title.
I didn't want to fight Henry, but I understand what the art of the game. The art of the game is that, you know what, the 2 best people fight each other. And I knew that it was going to be a tough fight for me.
Holyfield TKO'd his homeboy in the 7th round. It would be the last world title fight of Tillman's career.
Some guys, just because you have amateur success, doesn't always mean it'll translate into the pro game.
In 1990, at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Tillman appeared in the spotlight one final time as the opponent for Mike Tyson, who 4 months earlier had lost his heavyweight crown to Buster Douglas.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna win. I'm never taking a fight where I didn't think I could win.
Tillman didn't make it out of the first round.
He just caught me with a good shot, you know, high on the top of the tempo, and just caught me, you know, and I went down.
So while Tillman had the edge in the amateurs, Mike had the advantage in the pros.
Unable to get past the top heavyweights, Tillman hung up his gloves 2 years later with a record of 25-6.
Yeah, he made some money, you know, but did he make the big money like Mike Tyson did or Evander Holyfield? You know, millions of dollars, big money. No, he didn't.
It wouldn't take long for Henry Tillman to run out of money. And when he did, he started spending money he didn't have.
I didn't care about living, and I didn't care about nobody else living. I was in the street like just a regular old thug.
Go to jail, get out, go to jail, get out. I was like, yo, bro, what are you doing, man? You're tarnishing that gold medal.
You know, I didn't care. Hollywood Park, everything that I did bad, not blame, put no blame, it was still me.
Henry Tillman was sentenced to 3 years in prison.
I didn't care about living, I didn't care about nobody else living. I was in the street like just a regular old thug.
Before beginning his sentence, Tillman allegedly fired a .38 caliber revolver at 2 men sitting in a car parked outside the Townhouse, a popular South Central night spot.
Henry Tillman was obviously well connected with the street. He was big, strong, scary, and capable.
The driver recovered, but the passenger, shot in the eye, died from a stroke days later. Tillman spent more than 4 years in jail awaiting trial for attempted murder.
It was really, really tough, you know, because I did a total of 53 months in total solitary confinement. You just get into your own head. You have to be strong.
Ultimately, Tillman's lawyer convinced him to accept a plea bargain.
He said, well, Henry, you can plead no contest, protect, you know, your innocence as best you can, and walk around on the street in a few months, pleading your case how innocent you are. Or you cannot plead no contest, and possibly this thing can go the other way, and you walk around prison for 25 years of life. You know, you say, don't give the system another chance to throw the dart at you.
Tillman was granted time served for the years he'd spent in jail awaiting trial, and after 18 months was set free, but it didn't last long.
Well, you know, it's just like in any crime. You're looking for something that you don't have to work to get.
When he was hustling the streets, I used to always tell him, why are you hustling so much, Henry?
In January of 2004, a woman attempted to cash a counterfeit check at a Wells Fargo bank. Police pulled over her getaway car and apprehended Tillman and 4 associates. In the car, they discovered several fake IDs, credit cards, and checks in his possession.
After all I've accomplished already, shine shoes, and so I was just trying to just make money, that's all. Trying to make money real fast.
I've known fighters that if they're surrounded by con men and jerk-offs, they bring the fighter back to a street mentality, and then the fighter is told he can do whatever he wants.
You're getting small money here, now you're getting more money, now you're getting straight cash money, and so you think it'll last forever.
Tillman pleaded guilty to identity theft and was sentenced to 37 months in state prison.
I went to visit him, and I was like, yo, bro, what are you doing, man? You're tarnishing that gold medal. You know, that gold medal's going from gold to bronze.
Henry Tillman was released in 2008 at age 48. But compared to former heavyweight world champ Trevor Berbick, Tillman got off easy.
I just kind of, to be honest with you, knew that it wouldn't end good for Trevor Berbick.
Jamaican-born and raised Trevor Berbick started boxing late at the age of 19. With almost no ring experience, Berbick won bronze at the 1975 Pan Am Games.
Trevor Berbick was a fine fighter. He wasn't that talented, but he was very, very tough.
Trevor's a little nuts, you know, and I think he channeled that craziness inside the ring, and it did him some good then as a prize fighter.
Berbick represented Jamaica at the '76 Olympic Games in Montreal, then won 18 of his first 20 pro fights, earning a shot at Larry Holmes' WBC heavyweight belt. He lost a lopsided decision, but 8 months later, the 27-year-old Berbick was in the ring again against 39-year-old faded former champion Muhammad Ali.
The last man to fight Muhammad Ali, in which easily is the most disgraceful promotion in boxing history. Ali should not have been fighting.
In Ali's final fight, Berbick destroyed him. After winning 10 of his next 12 fights, Berbick got a second title shot, and this time he made the most of it, taking out Pinklin Thomas to be crowned the WBC heavyweight champion of the world.
Berbick had surprising success in the heavyweight division.
It was just his unfortunate time frame that he became champion just when Mike Tyson was ready to challenge for the championship.
On November 27, 1986, Berbick made his first title defense against 20-year-old phenom Mike Tyson. But before the fight, he began exhibiting strange behavior, complaining that poison gas was being pumped into his hotel room.
I interviewed Trevor a bunch of times, been around him, know a lot of stories, heard a lot of things. Wouldn't surprise me if Trevor Berbick had some type of mental illness.
Berbick also claimed that his new trainer, the legendary Angelo Dundee, had hypnotized him and given him an injection before the fight that made him lose his balance. Injection or not, Tyson had no problem knocking Berbick off his feet.
He didn't last long. But he got a good payday, and it worked for one fight, and it was over.
I just felt that he had issues upstairs that needed to be dealt with.
He was way more dangerous outside of the ring than he was in it.
In March of 1990, Berbick was arrested for threatening a man with a knife who he believed had been sleeping with his wife, Nadine. 7 months later, Nadine left him and filed for divorce, claiming abuse.
I think it demonstrates that he was an impulsive individual. I think it demonstrates that he was a little antisocial.
Shortly after he was released on bail, Berbick and Larry Holmes got into a street fight when Berbick accused Holmes of trying to break up his marriage.
Him and Larry get into a disagreement. Larry loses his mind. Trevor Berbick was really good at getting under people's skin. That's what he was really good at.
Then it got real. Berbick was arrested for raping his children's babysitter. At trial, she said,
I gave him the address to come bring me my money. He knocked on the door. I let him in. Then he said, come give me a hug. I said no. I tried to leave, but the man wouldn't let me.
I think he might have just felt comfortable with this and felt like there wouldn't be any repercussions from this.
Then we start struggling. I was screaming. I told him if he did, I was going to call the police. He said, go ahead. Nobody's going to believe you. I'm Trevor Berbick.
I've heard things about him, some good, some bad, some I wouldn't repeat. A lot of guys can't make that transition from being a superstar or a fighter to becoming just a guy again.
He was acting like this was some kind of game for him. He was actually having fun terrorizing me in that apartment.
What you get is you get kind of the spoiled brat syndrome, in which I can do whatever I want because I can pay the money for the lawyers. The judge probably knows who I am. Essentially, it's a sense of entitlement that leads to these nasty out-of-ring incidents that we're profiling so closely.
Berbick was convicted of rape and assault, receiving a 4-year sentence. In court, he turned belligerent.
Your Honor, I'm innocent. I'm telling you, I'm innocent. And you all furnish an innocent family man. I'm going to keep you suffering and leave police
The judge ordered a psychological evaluation, and he was diagnosed with delusions of grandeur.
There again, you know, a guy who has issues upstairs, who's in boxing, and getting hit in the head. And then after the game, what does he do?
Some of the guys can't get rid of that thug image. They think they have to be this big, badass thug, you know, in the ring and out of the ring.
Berbick served 15 months of the rape sentence and was able to resume his boxing career. But when a blood clot was found in Berbick's brain, he was forced to retire. Shortly afterwards, he violated his parole and was deported back to Jamaica.
So what he's thinking is, I'm gone, I've lost my wife, I'm not gonna see my children, I have to go back to Jamaica, I can't really earn money there, not like I can here in America. It must have been a devastating judgment.
In 2002, the troubled Berbick slipped back into the United States to see his children, but got arrested and sent back to Jamaica a second time.
The sexual assault on the babysitter obviously is pretty nasty.
Your first home, see.
And friend Kenton Gordon lurked in the shadows and watched Trevor's every move. Berbick, now an ordained minister who called himself the Soldier of the Cross, ended up in a remote churchyard. Harold and Kenton Gordon approached the tipsy Trevor Berbick in the churchyard, wielding a 2-inch thick pipe, and they beat him to death.
He was bludgeoned to death. Witnesses say that he had been involved in a land dispute and that that's what maybe led to his murder. I think the most tragic aspect of the case is that it was his own family member that killed him. It was his flesh and his blood in his own country, Jamaica. It's bone-chilling. It calls into question the very basic composition of human decency.
Berbick's legacy is probably that he fought Ali and he fought Mike Tyson. But unfortunately, because he wasn't a star, because he wasn't a figure in boxing that was a formidable figure, it'll be lost in history.
Riddick Bowe's legacy is yet to be determined, but he knows how he'd like to be remembered.
Great guy, great fighter, very determined, had a lot of heart. And one day, somebody gonna say, you know what? I wanna be just like him. And they may start boxing.
Bowe returned to the ring in June of 2013 at age 45 for a Muay Thai fight in Thailand. He was knocked down 5 times en route to a second-round TKO loss.
He was talking about being the heavyweight champion of the world in 2010 when he was 70, 80 pounds overweight and clearly had acute brain damage.
All right, let's go. Good work.
Henry Tillman is faring much better since his incarceration.
Feint, jab in, drop down to the body. You know what I'm saying? Make them think you're doing something else. You know you're going in for the body shot.
In July of 2013, he opened the Henry Tillman Championship Boxing Club in Carson, California.
I'm helping somebody stay out of trouble or possibly getting hurt or hurt somebody. And, you know, and I like when I see the fighters just hang around the gym all day. And that's a good feeling to see they're safe.
One of the great things for Henry is that he's in an environment now of helping other young fighters come up. I see a sincerity in him, and I feel like he's on a really good path.
Henry Tillman is a wonder for me. He is out there in the community. He is alive. He's alert. He's such a dynamo. A lot of things are taken away from him, time, money, etc., but he's giving back.
Tillman wasn't the best fighter, but he probably gonna be the best trainer and the best coach. I allowed Tillman to work with my son one time, my son Evan, and Tillman was able to get him to do all the stuff I was trying to get them to do, and in one setting, he got them to do all this.
The things that he went through, you know, he's always telling me that too, and it is an inspiration, you know, to do more, that I could be whatever I want to be, you know. If I put my time in it, you know, it'll pay off.
I just wish there was some kind of way you can help fighters become more successful after boxing when they're done, because all that work and all that risk and wind up with where you started from with nothing. You know, that's what makes it boxing sad, and people look at it as bad, but boxing for some of us was a way out, was the last boat, you know, to get out.
नमस्ते प्यारे दोस्तों, स्वागत है आपका हमारे आज के रंगों से भरे मज़ेदार वीडियो में। आज हम रंग भरने जा रहे हैं एक बहुत ही सुंदर और चमकदार जीव में, गोल्ड फिश यानी हमारी प्यारी सी सोने की मछली। तो चलिए अपनी कलर पेंसिल्स, क्रेयॉन्स या मार्कर्स लेकर तैयार हो जाइए और मेरे साथ धीरे धीरे इस सुंदर मछली में रंग भरना शुरू करते हैं। सबसे पहले इस मछली की आउटलाइन को ध्यान से देखिए। इसका शरीर लंबा और पतला है, बड़ी गोल आंखें हैं और इसके पंख फिन्स बहुत हल्के और सुंदर हैं। इसकी पूंछ लंबी और लहराती हुई दिख रही है, जैसे पानी में नाच रही हो। अब हम इसमें रंग भरना शुरू करते हैं। गोल्ड फिश का मुख्य रंग होता है सुनहरा नारंगी। तो चलिए सबसे पहले हल्के नारंगी रंग से पूरे शरीर पर एक बेस कोट डालिए। बहुत ज्यादा गहरा मत कीजिए, धीरे धीरे पतले स्ट्रोक्स में रंग भरिए। जहां शरीर गोल और मोटा है वहां थोड़ा ज्यादा शेड दीजिए ताकि वह उभरा हुआ लगे। अब पंखों की बारी है। पंखों में रंग हमेशा हल्का और पारदर्शी होता है। इसके लिए हल्का ऑरेंज या पीच रंग लीजिए और बाहर की तरफ हल्के स्ट्रोक्स चलाइए। पंखों की लाइनें दिखाई देती रहें, इसलिए ज्यादा रंग मत भरिए। जहां छाया है वहां हल्का सा गहरा शेड डाल सकते हैं। अब हम मछली के सिर पर हल्का पीला या सुनहरा शेड डालेंगे ताकि गोल्ड फिश की चमक दिखे। अगर आप चाहें तो सिर और शरीर के बीच थोड़ा लाल नारंगी ब्लेंड कर सकते हैं ताकि रंग में गहराई आए। इससे मछली असली जैसी दिखेगी। अब आंखों की बारी है। मछली की आंखें गोल और बड़ी होती हैं। पहले सफेद हिस्सा छोड़ दीजिए, फिर अंदर काला रंग भरिए और बीच में एक छोटा सा सफेद डॉट छोड़िए ताकि आंखों में चमक दिखे। अब नाक और मुंह को हल्का ग्रे या गुलाबी रंग से दर्शाइए। अब पूंछ को रंगते हैं। पूंछ मछली की सबसे सुंदर चीज होती है, चौड़ी, लहराती हुई और पारदर्शी। हल्के ऑरेंज रंग में लंबाई की दिशा में स्ट्रोक्स लगाइए। बीच में थोड़ा गहरा नारंगी डालिए ताकि लहर का असर दिखे। अगर आप चाहें तो सिरे पर हल्का लाल शेड डाल सकते हैं। अब शरीर पर हल्का सा पीला हाईलाइट दीजिए ताकि वह चमकदार लगे, जैसे पानी में रोशनी पड़ रही हो। पीले रंग को बहुत धीरे धीरे ब्लेंड करें ताकि ट्रांजिशन स्मूथ लगे। अब चलिए बैकग्राउंड की ओर बढ़ते हैं। गोल्डफिश हमेशा पानी में रहती है, तो बैकग्राउंड को हल्का नीला या एक्वा रंग से रंगिए। पानी में बबल्स यानी बुलबुले भी बना सकते हैं, छोटे छोटे गोल घेरे और अंदर सफेद हाईलाइट, ताकि लगे कि मछली पानी में तैर रही है। अगर चाहें तो नीचे थोड़ा सा हरा रंग डालिए ताकि लगे कि नीचे पौधे हैं। पानी के पौधों के लिए ग्रीन और डार्क ग्रीन का मिश्रण बहुत सुंदर लगता है। अब थोड़ा पीछे हटकर अपनी पूरी ड्राइंग को देखिए। क्या शरीर और पूंछ का रंग समान है? अगर कहीं रंग हल्का रह गया है तो धीरे धीरे दोबारा स्ट्रोक्स लगाइए। ध्यान रखिए हर स्ट्रोक पानी की लहर की दिशा में चलाइए ताकि मूवमेंट दिखे। अब आखिरी टच का समय है। आप चाहें तो गोल्डफिश के शरीर पर सफेद या पीले हाइलाइट्स डाल सकते हैं ताकि चमक बढ़े। पंखों और पूंछ के किनारे पर हल्का ग्रे शेड डालिए ताकि गहराई दिखे। और देखिए अब हमारी प्यारी गोल्डफिश तैयार है। ये कितनी चमकदार लग रही है, जैसे असली पानी में तैर रही हो। आपने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है। याद रखिए, रंग भरना सिर्फ चित्र को सजाना नहीं है, यह एक कला है जो आपकी धैर्य और कल्पना दोनों को बढ़ाती है। जब आप हर स्ट्रोक के साथ सांस लेते हैं तो आपका मन भी शांत हो जाता है। अगर आपको यह वीडियो पसंद आया हो तो लाइक और सब्सक्राइब करना न भूलिए। अगली बार हम किसी और सुंदर जीव में रंग भरेंगे, शायद एक समुद्री कछुआ या फिर एक प्यारी सी डॉल्फिन।